Awakened Coldpen. That's the first gem I get in the league. What is up, you beautiful people? It's Kogi here again, this time showing you my ONI GOROSHI Tectonic Slam Chieftain. Bringing you another series for the ONI series on my favorite unique, the ONI GOROSHI sword. I love it so much because it's just so unique in how you built it, and it rewards you very well if you decide or, know how to build it correctly and scale the right stats in the build. And compared to my last build, which is a Cyclone build, this one's a lot tankier, much more survivable. I would say the clear speed's actually better because of the amount of AOE the build has. It's absolutely insane. And I love just seeing Tectonic Slam slowly build up and kill everything as it goes in little waves. It's extremely satisfying. However, it does come with a downside in that it's single target due to Tectonic Slam's lack of single target is pretty meh. Now, needless to say, does it mean it's bad? No, you can still kill everything in the game, but it highly relies on your totem and on your flask, and when those things drop off, it does become a little lackluster. But needless to say, it still kills everything in the game very easily if you put enough investment, like you should, into a build in order to make it, feel fun and enjoyable. But for clear, it's an absolute monster, and I really enjoyed it. And honestly, I'm looking forward to starting another ONI series in the next build in Heist. So with that, guys, you guys can follow me down on Twitch. I do stream there every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Or if you guys would like to join my Discord, everybody's kind of getting ready for the Heist, I guess you can say, expansion, looking to see the new skills, all the new alternate qualities, which are kind of really cool and insane. I'm thinking about making some really cool and unique builds like I usually do. So hope you guys are excited with me, and you're more welcome to join the community. I'm always out there trying to help you guys. And if you guys have any comments or any questions, please put them in the comments down below, and I'll gladly answer them as I can. So with that, guys, let's go into the guide. Welcome back, guys, into the detailed section of the build. My character is called Burning, but I like it for obvious reasons. My sadistic sword likes to give me her blessing, thus putting me on fire to make me stronger, and I like it. So I guess that makes me a masochist. But I mean, we're a chieftain anyway, right? So I guess he likes it anyway. But with that out of the way, I want to first go over my character's leveling strats, because I know a lot of people have some issues with that before going into the tree. That way you guys know kind of why I choose the things in the tree as I level, and I'll walk you through it with the POB. But this character is a Tectonic Slam build, and it converts everything to fire because ONI GOROSHI is a sword that when her blessing is active, in order to activate her blessing, by the way, you have to ignite an enemy, which is very easy if you crit. If you crit with fire damage, you're guaranteed an ignite. And when you basically crit with this weapon, it has a very high crit chance, which is very nice. You're going to get her blessing. Her blessing makes you immune to freeze, chill, stun immunity as well. And then on top of that, you get like a second version of Onslaught. It basically is Onslaught, but it stacks with Onslaught. You get 20% attack speed, movement speed, and cast speed. And then on top of that, you get 123% of your physical sword attack, I guess you can say, damage as extra fire. So it's very similar to how a Void Forge or a Doomfletch Prism would work. But in this case, it's primarily fire, which is really good because then you can just focus on that one element and stack a lot of penetration for that one element, which is very, very nice. Right now, Tectonic Slam is a skill you get in, I would say, Act 3, level 28. But let's say that you're starting out with this weapon at level 1, because that is a level 1 unique, and the only way for you to get it is to kill the boss in Twilight Strand, literally the first area that you zone in when you first make a character. Let me show you real quick. Right here. The problem with this area, the Twilight Strand, is that you cannot re-enter it once you clear it and leave it. So what you have to do is you have to, I recommend, make 3 characters that ideally are Scion, and then you have to run the strand, kill the enemy boss, and then relog into a different character while that zone reloads and summons the boss again, because you can't naturally reload it using the waypoint like you would do in any other area. Now, I recommend 3 characters. It takes roughly 3 runs of 3 different characters in order for the first one to then reset, and then you can go back and do it. It takes roughly 8 to 12 hours. I do not recommend it unless you're playing solo self-found, because it does drop 6 link like this. You don't have to link it. So it's a very strong weapon, and I love it to death. It's my favorite unique in the game, right? But honestly, in 8 to 12 hours, you can probably farm more exalts than this thing's going to cost. Early on, it's going to cost maybe like 5 exalts within a few days, but once all the bots start running it, honestly, it'll go down to like 2 or 3 exalts, and then from there, maybe 1 or 2 exalts, and it's roughly 6 there towards the rest of the league. So I recommend just buying it later and just dealing with any sword you got. But if you do have a weapon like this, essentially what you want to do is you want to start with a lot of fire. And I won't say a lot of fire, but you want to start with some fire damage and basically make your build ignite as much as possible. And it's really good as a marauder because you get certain skill supports, right? So I usually start with Perforate. Since it's a Tectonic Slam build, it is a slam build, but we're not really building into the slow slams. We're building into multi-strike. And when you use multi-strike, your attacks repeat. And since they repeat, you cannot exert them. So don't even worry about that. This is a fast build, not a slow one. So I use Pref Rate because honestly, it's really good. And I'm actually thinking about making another ONI GOROSHI build using Pref Rate because it's surprisingly very nice. And I think it has a lot more damage potential single target wise than Tectonic Slam. But of course, the clear is not as good. But hey, I take that trade off because the clear is decent enough that it's okay. But beside the point, when using Pref Rate, you want to put added fire and then combustion as well. In order for the sword to ignite, you need a little bit of fire damage, right? And your crit chance is not going to be too high. So combustion gives you a chance to ignite. And with this, you should basically be igniting all the time when you attack, thus giving you that attack speed and movement speed, which is going to help you clear a lot faster, honestly. And then eventually at level 12, I think this is after you kill Merveil, you get Infernal Blow. And Infernal Blow has fire damage already on it. You know, converts your physical to fire. And you get really nice pops. So it makes it clear a lot better. Make sure to use this with Ancestral Call, which you also get in Act 1. And allows you to basically hit multiple enemies and pop multiple enemies. And your clear should be a lot better. You should be able to one-tap everything, honestly. You can pick up Precision, right? And then in Act 3 is when you want to pick up Tectonic Slam and then use that for the rest of the game. Also, another good gem is Enduring Cry, level 10. We do pick up Call to Arms. I'll go over the skill tree real quick. Right here, where it allows your War Cries to be instant. So essentially, we are walking with our War Cries. So basically, it's instantly procced. Basically, it's a heal and thus giving us endurance charges, which is what Chieftain's all about. Getting all that region from endurance charges. Right, so you really want to pick up Enduring Cry as you go. Now, make sure to pick up your Ancestral Totem, like the Ancestral Protector, and then eventually the Ancestor War Chief, because it's more damage. We don't really need the attack speed, the more damage is better. And of course, the Vol Ancestor War Chief is just the better version in total for single target. As for your links, make sure to pick up, once you get to Tectonic Slam, obviously, melee fizz damage, support, elemental damage, support, that's in Act 2. I don't recommend Elemental Focus, obviously, because it doesn't let you ignite. And if you can't ignite, you won't get the Sword's Blessing. So do not use Elemental Focus. Combustion's a great, honestly, skill gem to use as you level. And then I eventually just give it to the totem. Once I have enough gems, I guess you can say, in my 6 link, that I'll just give it to the totem. That way it's a debuff and the totem will apply for me. You can also use Maim because increased physical damage or more physical damage. It does benefit the sword because it's converting from fizz to fire. So any sort of fizz damage does increase the damage of the build, right? Of course, once you get a concentrated effect, you can use that, but, you know, you don't get increased AOE into Act 4, so I would really recommend it until you can swap those two out. Close Combat is another gem you can get in Act 2. Highly recommended, very good. Multi-Strike is basically your go-to skill in Act 4. You're okay without it. Honestly, if you want, you probably want to use an Infernal Blow until you get Multi-Strike to use Tectonic Slam. But honestly, you should be one-tapping everything with Tectonic Slam anyway, right? And that pretty much covers the supports you want to use, right? Now, before I go into the gear, I'll show you the other supports, but those are basically your leveling supports and the damage supports you're going to be using. Make sure to pick up your Herald of Ash, obviously. You can even use Herald of Ice if you wanted to. Well, actually, no, Herald of Purity. Use Herald of Purity. You won't have enough space for Herald of Ice. So Purity and Herald of Ash are basically your go-to auras while leveling, and eventually, you know, you can fit in everything else. Oh, another gem is Blood and Sand. Blood and Sand is actually in Act 1, and the reason why I like that is because Pref Rate you get in Act 1, and it has this, you know, this dynamic with Blood and Sand, going Blood Stance and Sand Stance. And it goes in hand with this node in the tree, which you can pick up early. If you have this jewel, I'll go over it real quickly. And it gives you damage and attack speed depending on what stance and AoE you on. AoE depending on what stance you're on, right? Which is very, very nice for things like that. Also, another good unique to use is Praxis, because you're going to be having issues with mana early on. So you want to use a mana pot, and then you want to use Praxis at level 22 if you can buy it. That way, your mana is easier to sustain because we get our mana leech simply from a mana node from your cluster jewels, excuse me. And it's actually very cheap to get, so I'll go over that real quickly. Okay, so now let's move into the skill tree. Now, this program is called Path of Building, and Path of Building is a program that allows you basically to theory craft and make a character without actually investing the time and the actual in-game currency to make the character yourself, so you know what you can expect from the build before you go out there, you know, and try it. This prevents me from basically making something that sucks, and while I know really was going to work or not beforehand at that point in time, because I'm just that good at the game after 5 years of playing it, you know, I still don't know what's going to be better in terms of min-maxing, and this program is absolutely amazing for things like that. I love to min-max my builds to the absolute T, so this is beautiful for that very reason, and it helps me, you know, make certain expectations of how the build's going to perform, because I don't want to put the expectations too high for myself, and then when I see the build perform the way it does, and then it's lower than what I expected, I get depressed, things like that. I want to say they get depressed, but I get disappointed. This program prevents that, so I really like this. It helps me make a lot of builds, and honestly, I spend more time on this program than probably the game itself. And that's just the reason why I like to play this game. I don't really do it for the money or anything else. I just love theory crafting builds. And for you guys' knowledge, I'll leave the link down below for you guys to download this. Make sure it's a community fork. That'll be the link for that one. The community fork is enhanced in terms of the configuration. It has more settings, is more accurate. Impale damage is something that the normal version doesn't actually calculate. This version does. So keep that in mind. Now down here we have our early game, mid game, and end game tree, so you guys can see what nodes to prioritize. So let's go into the early game tree for you guys to see. Now as a marauder, you want to pick up all these life nodes, get up here, get born a fight, get all this melee damage, because we're using perforate, so we're going to be melee all the way. I recommend just skipping this until later, constitution. And this is actually totally up to you. I go for it just because it's good life and it's on the way. Come down here and pick up all these crit nodes. Since ONI GOROSHI has a good crit, you want to pick these up and make use of that crit that ONI GOROSHI has, because that's such a high base crit. Keep in mind though, if you do not have an ONI GOROSHI, and let's say you're playing this build from the start, and of course not going to farm the weapon, then just skip anything that's not crit. Like for example, these are just crit nodes. You can go ahead and pick them up. I don't really mind it, but if you do pick them up, make sure to use an increased critical strike gem. I forgot to mention that. And a critical strike gem is kind of similar to a combustion gem, because it improves your chance to ignite by improving your critical strike chance. So you can use that as a 6-link or pseudo 6-link, just to have a higher chance of critting and make more use of these nodes, honestly. And if you're using basic weapon, even that will still work fine. So honestly, it should work either way as long as you use that gem. Come here. If you have a Thread of Hope, I highly recommend you socketing in already. You get this life node. You get these little blood and sand, these blood and sand stance nodes, and they're amazing with blood and sand, which you get in Act 1. And you get these beautiful nodes here that give you minimum frenzy charge, minimum endurance charges, and damage per those charges. The endurance charge is really cool because this build has 6 endurance charges just because of the way that Tectonic Slam works with endurance charges. I'll go over that in the skill. And since we have 6, that's literally 48% increased damage from this one node. So it's very, very nice. But honestly, if you don't have it, don't worry about it too much. Just continue on, right? Moving on to the left. Make sure to pick up Call to Arms, because Enduring Cries is a level 10 gem. So you want to be able to use that as quick as possible. Get up more live, and that's pretty much it. As for your Ascendancy, the first node you want to pick up is Valakal Storm Embrace. I only recommend this, honestly, if you're using ONI GOROSHI from the start, because ONI GOROSHI has a degen, of course. The downside is it works kind of like Righteous Fire, where when you apply the blessing, you ignite, you take fire damage over time, depending on your life. If you read it closely, over here, it says, while under Embrace, you take 0.5% of your total maximum life energy shield as fire damage per second per level. So as you level, the worse it gets. And so you want to make sure that your fire res is as high as possible. But this one node will basically take care of it, especially with your Enduring Cry. You get an level 10, because once you cry, it doesn't matter what cry you use, you get an endurance charge per second, which is very nice. But honestly, this node doesn't really give you damage until using during Tectonic Slam in Act 3. But it's nice for sustain, so you don't have to deal with that stupid degen. And that's pretty much what I do. I get a lot of life nodes in the beginning, because honestly, this sword will carry you the majority of the way there. If you don't have this, honestly, just move on to the medium tree over here and just take those nodes. As you guys can see here in the medium tree, we go all the way down to the right. We pick up more life and pick up these little sword nodes that are physical and has accuracy. You want to make sure that you have a 100% chance to hit, because do not undermine that stat. If you have 95% chance, QB doesn't really see it as like a significant damage loss. But trust me, it makes a very big difference whether you're capped or not. So try to at least get minimum 99% chance to hit. Look at the endurance charges, because at this point, this is around level 68 to 70. You should be using Tectonic Slam already, right? We get the little Lava Lash because of Tectonic Slam converts 60% of your fire damage to physical to fire. So we're going to be fire the majority of the time. Once you can, you want to make sure that you have a cluster jewel with martial prowess and feel the fight for the mana leech one. The other one is a luxury. Don't even worry about it. You don't need this life leech. We do get life leech from the Ascendancy of Chieftain. If you look over here, Hinakora's Death Fury. So there's going to be the second Ascendancy, then the third. It gives you 1% of fire damage, leeches life, and that should take care of it. And you get, of course, cover enemies in Ash, which is, it slows them down and makes them take more fire damage, which is very nice. Right? So you want to make sure that you get these two. Now, you're going to, of course, like I said before, you're going to have mana problems. So make sure to use your Praxis Ring if you have one, a mana pot, or you can just anoint one of these little leech nodes. This is actually very cheap. It's a teal, purple, and black, and it should cover the majority of your mana problems, honestly, until you get this cluster node. And yeah, that's good enough in my opinion, because you can just anoint later on Fatal Blade, which is your anointment. I'll go over it later. Once you can, it's just a luxury and it's definitely not needed. Now moving on to the left side of the tree, you do want to go up here, and after Juggernaut, you want to grab, of course, the last endurance charge here, because we are at this point using Tectonic Slam. You want to pick up Thread of Hope, because this Thread of Hope is absolutely amazing in terms that it gives you versatility over here, which gives you dexterity, intelligence, which you're going to need a lot of. I won't say a lot of, but you're going to need it, and it's annoying to get in gear. It gives you accuracy, crit chance, and attack speed, everything that you really need in a build like this. Allows you to get Blade Master, which gives you accuracy and damage, without having to take these 3 little nodes that are not that good, honestly. But most importantly, you get these 2 magnetic strikes that give you the last 40% of physical damage converted to fire, to add to your Tectonic Slam to get 100% converted to fire. And it's honestly a very good source of damage. And it saves you all these points going across. But of course, if you don't have this Thread of Jewel, just go ahead and manually pick them up. I recommend going for the conversion first, then versatility, and then lastly, Blade Master. Because eventually that accuracy is going to come in super handy, and you're not going to be capped out without that accuracy node. Keep that in mind. So make sure to pick all that up, and then you can just, as you level, upgrade into your Thread of Hope and take them out as you see fit. Now, this Thread of Hope, I would say, is a lot more important than this one. It's just that this one happens to be more useful early on, because you do get all the blood and sand early and everything like that. Well, this one's more of a, it's more of an issue later on when conversion becomes more of a problem, when your accuracy becomes more of a problem. And you can always make up for these little nodes over here by crafting the physical damage converter to fire craft on a glove. But of course, if you don't have it early on, you can just buy from somebody in Global Weight 20. With that in mind, we keep going up. You get Barbarism for more life, Disemboweling for more crit, things like that. On the right, we mentioned that. Up here, it's the same thing. We get Constitution, and that pretty much covers the medium tree, which is up to level 75. And remember the cluster jewels, we're not even getting to the medium jewels yet. The medium jewels in this build are primarily just straight up luxury. Trust me on that, you don't really need them. And then lastly is go into the Endgame Tree, and it's basically fill out the rest of the nodes. At this point, the last ascendancy we're going to pick up is Salio. Now, Tahawa's does not work at all with this build, trust me. It's a cooldown, so our attacks repeat with multi-strike. And this thing happens like once every 4 seconds, and it's not even that good, honestly. It's only good when you're a single slam build, and I wouldn't even recommend a Tectonic Slam. Tectonic Slam, honestly, is not that good of a skill for single targets, especially for slam, like big slams. So ignore that. The Hamahus we don't need because we're full conversion anyway, and it's just damage that's not, how would I say, reliable, because it only happens, every 10 seconds for 4 seconds, and I hate that. I don't like things like that. I want consistent damage. So I just went for Tesalio to give us that fire res. You can take out all the fire res in your gear, honestly, with this. More regen. And honestly, now you get 50% increased life recovery rate if you've taken fire damage from an enemy hit recently. And since we do take with this node 10% of physical damage as fire, if we take fizz damage, we're going to get, it's technically fire because it's a little bit converted. And thus our recovery rate shoots off to the roof, and that affects our leech. So it's really good, like extremely good for life sustain. Don't even underestimate that, especially with Enduring Cry and all our endurance charges. Right, this also goes in hand with Gladiators and Presence, because even though this is only fizz attack leech, it is a little bit of fizz damage. But most importantly, it gives you 40% increased total recovery per second from life leech, and 10% increased maximum total recovery per second from life leech. So this increases the speed, and leech has a cap of how much life regen you can get at its cap. This increases the cap so you can regen even more. Really good. So I highly recommend that we pick that up. We start filling out the rest of the jewel sockets, which are the Abyssal jewels. You want physical damage to life. To attacks, or to sword attacks, life, and then attack speed if you dealt a critical strike recently. You can also get crit multi if you wanted to. Another thing I suggest you guys can pick up is, you can put it anywhere you want, is an Abyssal jewel like this with either attack speed or fizz, life, and blind. Blind is an awesome defensive source, and it makes the enemy miss half the time, and it's so easy to apply. It's such a good damage source, defensive source, and so just try to pick one up. I highly prioritize one of these, honestly. Just make sure you get blind somewhere. You're not going to regret that decision. Moving back to your tree. Right. We fill out the rest of the life nodes up here as we see fit. Now in here, we do fill up the rest of the medium jewels. And the medium jewels are just AOE nodes. Courtesy of Fast AF. He always uses these damn nodes. And honestly, like, what more do you want? You get 25% increased AOE if you killed 5 enemies recently. And then AOE area damage and crit multi. And they're honestly not that hard to roll. They're pretty cheap. So I'll get 2 of these and you get some massive AoE, but trust me, it's a luxury. You don't even need it. The damage is kind of mediocre anyway. Right, so it's just fun to have. And of course, the same jewel sockets there. the same thing you want to apply. Quick note is if your accuracy is not capped, you can go ahead and put some accuracy on these jewels and sacrifice either the fizz or the attack speed. Highly recommend the fizz over the attack speed. You really want that attack speed. Just to cap out your accuracy to make sure that you're close to that 100% or at least 99%. Now the skill tree out of the way. If you guys have any questions about this, please let me know in the comments down below, because you know, it's a little complicated honestly, but as you get your things, it should be very easy to fill out. Let's move into our gear. As simple as it gets, of course, our weapon is ONI GOROSHI. It drops 6 links for you want Tectonic Slam, Melee Fizz. If you get Awakened Melee Fizz, try to get level 1. They are expensive obviously, but if you do get an Awakened one, just level 1 is all you need. If you quality it, you have a chance to get Intimidate, and that's something I do not have in the build, and that'd be really good in terms of damage. Because Intimidate does make them take increased attack damage, which is really nice. Increase AOE for clear, and then concentrate effect for single targets. You want to swap those out. Elemental damage of attack, support, multi-strike, and then close combat. That's basically 6 things for damage. Your helmet is just going to be life and intelligence. If you need the intelligence, it rolls naturally on a helmet, so go for it if you need it. But of course, you need res as well. And if you have an open prefix, craft some AOE. Here I have cast some damage taken and mortal call. Since we have so many endurance charges, is absolutely amazing for sustaining a lot of our region, and it's a good source of defense, as it lasts longer the more endurance charges you have. Then we have second wind with Enduring Cry, just to make us proc Enduring Cry more often. Simple as that. Our gloves, you basically want dexterity because you're going to need that dexterity. Trust me. Life, physical damage, whatever res you need. And then just craft attack speed. And your best base is going to be a spike glove, but whatever glove works, honestly, to your budget. Use Leap Slam with faster attacks, Fortify, and have a level 1 precision just to have fun. You can actually level up more. I dropped it while I was messing with some auras and never raised it again because honestly, my accuracy was already capped at 100%. But I do have enough mana anyway at the end of the day that I could raise this up just to get a little bit more crit chance if I so wanted to. So play around with it. Just make sure that your mana is sustainable. Right. Moving on. Keep a note that you could use a dash instead of Leap Slam due to the nature of ONI GOROSHI, because the Leap Slam speed is actually based off the attack speed roll on your weapon, not the actual base attack speed. Like the ONI GOROSHI has a 1.45 base attack, which isn't too bad, but there's no attack speed roll on the weapon itself, which really hampers a skill like Leap Slam. So it relies on the blessing, the onslaught from the flask, and those abyssal jewels for crit attack speed, and of course Tailwind if you have Tailwind. To get a lot of attack speed. So while traversing to the map, it's not going to feel too fast until you hit something. But it's up to you if you want to play dash, whatever floats your boat. I like Leap Slam either way because it's just easier and I can spam it. Right, for your boots, you just want life, movement speed, and of course resistances. And if you can get Tailwind, go ahead Tailwind. Of course, this was made in Harvest, so those boots look nasty. I actually essence craft this on one shot, so I got lucky there. But again, you don't really need the Tailwind. It's just a luxury. You want Blood and Sand, Enlighten level 3. Honestly, you don't even need it. You don't even need the Enlightened. You can put whatever you want and just leave Precision level 1. Just make sure your accuracy is capped. Priority. Accuracy is capped. Right. Other Purity, and then of course, Herald of Ash for them juicy pops. These are really good auras because we are physical to fire, and both of those are Fizz and Fire. Moving on to your chest piece. Now your chest piece, you can honestly do whatever you want with this. It can be a Belly of the Beast. It can be a Carcass Jack like I have here for more AoE. It can be Explode Chest. Now, the Explode Chest, what happens is when you kill something, the entire thing will just explode, the entire pack. But with no Explode mod, it will just, due to the nature of Tectonic Slam going wave by wave and just getting bigger and bigger, you blow things up in waves, and it's quite satisfying, and I like it better without the Explode Chest, ironically. But one thing is to notice that if you're not using a Bottle of Faith, because you're probably looking at this like it's super expensive, you don't need it. You can use a Wise Oak and just get more penetration, but your crit's gonna hamper, so try to get something like this with some life, some res, and try to get a tier 1 attack roll to get an additional 1% or higher crit chance to your weapon, and that should more than enough cover it, honestly. And that should be fine. Since Bottle Faith is a very expensive flask. So you have many options there. Since I have Bottle Faith, I just went with just a fun option like Carcass Jack for more AoE. Here we have our Totem, Concentrate Effect, Close Combat, Combustion, this is our debuff, Totem, Melee Fizz, and Ancestral War Chief. Vol Ancestral War Chief, of course, so you can summon it and have some fun with it. And of course, if you have a 6-link, go ahead and 6-link it, and you can put elemental damage of attack skills if you so wanted, or anything else you would work, like Ruthless would also work as well. Right? Moving on to your belt. Now this belt's obviously amazing because of Harvest League. but you can use anything you want, but it has to be life resistances, and try to get, you know, you can craft your own elemental damage of attack skills up to 32%, which is more than enough, and that's good enough as a open prefix, and that should carry you all the way, right? That's all you really need, but you can go for something crazy like this if you have the muns, right? Stage advise all the way. I already went over the Abyssal Jewels. As for your jewelry, of course, you want more physical damage. That's the nature of ONI GOROSHI. Accuracy if you need it, life, and then whatever res you need. And then also try to get a curse of flammability on hit. On Harvest League is super easy, obviously, but these also drop from Delve, and they're substantially pretty cheap. You know, just get some life and flammability, and then craft whatever you need. Right? If you can't get the damage, don't worry about it. Get it from somewhere else. Like you can get the accuracy from an Abyssal Jewel instead of the ring. I don't really need the -9, I believe, of my current mana, but I highly recommend you do it just to sustain mana easier. So go ahead and go to Global 820. You can type it in your chat, of course. Join that server and ask people to buy this craft. It only costs 4 chaos, and it's, you know, it's really helpful. Same thing for Ami. Ami, of course, is absolutely insane because of Harvest. Not needed though. You want physical damage, accuracy if you need it, crit multi, life, and then of course craft -9 mana cost. As for the aspect of the spider, you can put it anywhere on your gear, boots, belt, glove, anywhere, ring that has an open suffix. You know, it doesn't have to be on the Ami. I just put it there because I had an open available suffix. Just make sure to buy Venomous of the First of the Night from the market or PoE trade. And you go to your Menagerie, you apply. Now it's a Beastcraft. You put whatever jewelry you want to craft it on, or armor piece, honestly, that has an open suffix. And then once you kill the little spider, it's pretty dangerous, so make sure you have some chaos res. The aspect spider will be applied, and now you have it as a kind of like a herald, but it's an aspect instead, right? They're usually very cheap, from 10 to 20 chaos, so it's not that expensive, guys. Just make sure that you don't die to the spider, because then you lose it. And then the other ring you want is a Circle of Guilt, which is a Herald of Purity ring. You want mana reservation and buff effect, and that's pretty much all you really need. Don't go for double damage. The mana is going to help you a lot at the end of the day. Like you see mine, I do have it in light in this minus mana thing here, and -9 rings, and I'm still really good and chill in terms of mana. But without these, you're probably going to have some mana problems. This is actually not that very expensive early on, yes, but everybody's looking for double damage, especially with the Herald of Ash ones now being super popular due to the BV build. So these are actually falling in price, so they're pretty good. And it makes your Herald of Purity just be absolutely nasty in terms of damage. That pretty much covers the gear in total. As for your flask, of course, Infernal Life Flask, Bottle of Faith if you have one. Obviously, if not, use a Wise Oak, but make sure that your fire resistance is your high, so that way you penetrate fire. A Cinder Swallow with crit chance, best in slot for a fire build, for obvious reasons, gives you more damage and sustain. Lion's Roar, obvious reasons, armor and melee damage, and then Diamond Flask for crit. Make sure you have a Bleed Flask on your Internal, and a Immunity to Curse Flask on your Diamond. Now, the sword does give you immunity to chill, but certain bosses like Uber Elder and Hydra, that, you know, they phase a lot and you might have to run away. I would say more Uber Elder, honestly. And if you take damage from ice, you might get frozen, since the blessing's only active for 3 seconds. I highly recommend to use an immunity to freeze if there's no curse active, especially for a boss fight. So make sure to have a freeze one as well. I highly recommend it. You're going to regret your decision if you don't, like I did when I ran Uber Elder. As for your bandits, Alira, always is, if you're building crit chance, get Alira. Now for your Pantheon, I highly recommend you go Sword of Arcali for reduced damage taken over time. That affects the debuff of the blessing, which makes you take damage over time. So it helps mitigate that a bit, right? And make sure to get recovery rates of life and air shield if you stop taking damage over time recently, because if your sword, you know, applies a debuff for 3 seconds when you crit, when you ignite, obviously. Once that disappears, this activates and you get a lot more regen, which, you know, goes hand with all the other regen we have in the build, and your health just skyrockets back up. Very nice defense source. And then, of course, Soul Shikari just for chaos mitigation, but you can go for Soul Vabra for reduced damage taken while moving. Not that big of a deal. This is more important for Cyclone because you are moving while the blessing's open. But for a build like this, you're standing still the majority of the time, so I highly recommend Shikari or whatever else you want, like Rislata for Life Flasks. As for your MTX, or my MTX anyway, I took it out by mistake, a Malice Weapon, because it looks like a katana on fire, and that's what ONI GOROSHI basically is. Demonic Weapon Effect, Demonic Hood, Demonic Body Armor, Doom Guard Gloves, Pandemonium Boots, Demonic Footprints. I did have a, Ultimate Chaos character effect, a Ultimate chaos wings. It's all fire and dark and stuff. And that pretty much covers it. As for your, I didn't use the Tectonic Slam with Celestial because honestly it covered the floor too much. If you're looking for the pops for the what you saw on the build, it was the Automaton Herald effect, and it's absolutely amazing for something like this. So I'd highly recommend it. That pretty much covers it. Let's go into the outro, and if you guys have any questions, please let me know in the comments down below. That pretty much wraps up the build guide. So of course, like always, I'm going to repeat it a bunch of times. If you guys have any questions, please let me know in the comments down below, or feel free to join my Discord or even my Twitch channel whenever I'm live. If you guys want to ask me the question directly, and I'll gladly help you out. This is one of my, favorite uniques in the game, so I know it to the T. And I'm gonna be making more of these, Oni Goroshi series or Oni series or Oni Cry series, whatever you want to call it, in the future, as I love making them as always. So with that, guys, I'll catch you in the next video. Please like and subscribe if you guys enjoy content like this. And I'll catch you next time in the next video guide or informative video. See you guys later.